What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's transfer tips time for game week 25. So we're going to go through some of the popular transfers in, out. Maybe players have blanked and people want to get rid of them. Maybe they've just not started and they want to get rid of them as well. Who should we be bringing in? Who are FPL managers bringing in this week? I'm going to give you my opinion on all of them. So if you do enjoy it, give it a like. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here as well. And let's jump into it. So Ronaldo didn't start against Burnley. Only had about 30 minutes. Cavani did alright, especially in the first half, but not great in the second half. But you could say that about any Man United player. The reasons for Rangnick leaving Ronaldo out were a little bit weird. It was something along the lines of there's going to be a lot of ball chasing, a lot of running, and therefore Cavani is suited to that better. But the way kind of Rangnick wants his Man United players to play, you'd think that's basically every single game. So is Ronaldo just going to start no games? I'm going to assume not. Right? I'm going to assume he's going to play more often than not still. But Cavani obviously does present a problem when they're only playing with one striker up front. So the key question mostly about this video is kind of, should you sell? And if yes, when should you sell? So I don't think you can really justify, in most scenarios, maybe you've got a team set up where you can, but in most people's teams, you can't justify selling Ronaldo before Southampton at home and Brighton at home, okay? They're two fairly okay fixtures, I would say. And there is a chance that he starts both of them. And there's not many players that are going to be predicted to score more points than Ronaldo this week. Now, if you've got doubts over him starting both games, I still don't think you can justify selling him again in most cases. But I do think you could maybe not captain him. So you maybe need to consider that. So these are the key things for Ronaldo, right? One, I really don't think you should be selling him this week, to be honest. Selling him from game week 26, absolutely fine. In different circumstances where Man United are converting performances into good wins, right? And that's creating confidence, and there's no Cavani and Ronaldo is going to start every game. You could make a case to keep him up until 27 because that is a blank game week for kind of Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea and Leicester right now. And he's arguably could be a good captain. But the problem is he is not playing fantastic. Man United are playing okay, but they're not converting these performances into wins. And that's kind of, going to put pressure on the team, on the manager and stuff like that, which just doesn't help. And also Kane plays Leeds away that week. So the key decision really is, do you sell him this week? No, I don't think you do. In game week 26, you definitely can. Who do you sell for? That is where you're going to have to look at your team and decide your next target. I think either you are sticking to a two premium kind of formation, right? So Salah plus a premium forward, maybe a premium midfielder. So then you're going to Harry Kane. And I do think Kane, I know like a lot of people are saying he hasn't scored many goals this year, but as I keep saying, he has underperformed a lot versus his stats. And if you watch the game last night, he could have had an assist to Reguilon. Reguilon had a really good chance in the box, which I'm going to rant about tomorrow on team selection. And he also should have scored from a header. I'm not sure how it didn't go in. So he actually had a really good game. Maybe not a really good game, but he had a few good chances to get FPL points. It just didn't happen. But I do think going forward with the fixtures, Leeds away in 27, Everton at home in 28, there are possibly times when you could look to captain him, right? And I think he is looking better on a Conte. I've said before, he's shooting a lot more. So that is your decision. Do you go to Kane or do you go to a cheaper striker? We're going to talk about cheaper strikers a bit more as we go along. But obviously, if you do that, you need a good way to spend the money. So for me, for my team anyway, it's an easy thing. You keep him for game week 25. You hope he starts both times. You maybe look to captain Fernandes if you can. Otherwise, you take the risk on Ronaldo. And then you probably look to just shift to Kane in game week 26. Easy as that. All right, so we're going to talk about Mo Salah. We'll all just agree straight away that he's great. I don't know if he's going to start in game week 24 because obviously I'm recording this before that match gets played. But either way, he's going to get some minutes. I'm sure he's going to get some points. He's going to start against Burnley. He's probably going to start both games in the double game week as well. Everyone's going to captain him in game week 26. If you've got your triple captain left and you're not using any other chips in game week 26, you are going to use your triple captain that week, right? We all agree on that. He's great. The key decision for a lot of people this week is whether you go to Fernandes first and then go to Mo Salah. So to try and work out whether that's worth it, I'm going to do a bit of maths, right? And hopefully I don't lose you all here. I'm going to try and go through it as quickly as possible and as least complicated as possible as well. Now, it does kind of throw a bit of a spanner into the works when you think about kind of Cristiano Ronaldo. Like, if we knew he was going to get the same amount of minutes as Fernandes in the double game week, then you'd probably just captain him, and yes, you probably would just go to Salah first. But if you are thinking of captaining Fernandes, then things change a little bit. So bear with me, right? This is on FPLreview.com. It does player projections. Fantasy Football Scout does this as well. I've used that site too. But for this one, I'm going to use FPLreview.com. Okay, so Salah for the next 2 game weeks, 25 and 26, that's all I'm looking at here. I'm only looking at midfielders, is the top projected point scorer, right? Obviously, it's Mo Salah. He's got Norwich at home, Leeds at home in a double game week. Of course, he's going to be the most, 25.28 points over the next 2 weeks. Whereas Fernandes, only 14.42. So if you look at those two numbers, yes, you would just go straight to Salah. It makes sense, right? And obviously, if you go to Fernandes first, then you go to Salah, that's costing you an extra transfer. Essentially, that's costing you 4 points down the line to make that transfer. So is it worth it? Okay, and this is where we're going to do a little bit of maths, and this is where I've kind of taught myself in to the fact that if I'm going to bring in a premium midfielder this week, I'm probably going to go to Fernandes first and then to Salah. Okay, so Salah's points for the 2 weeks are 25.28. Fernandes is a 14.42. We just saw that on the website. If you go to Fernandes first and then Salah, it's 9.91 plus 19.11, etc. It's 29.02 points over the 2 game weeks, okay? Now, if you took 4 points off that, it's 25.02, and therefore, actually, it might just be worth going Salah straight away. Although the fact that the 4-point hit is so close to being worth it anyway, I would personally take the gamble on Fernandes because he's got 2 games and crazy things can happen in double game weeks. And I'd rather have a ticket to the lottery than not. But when you add in captaincy, it's a little bit different. So and bearing in mind, a lot of people are going to captain Man United players. I don't care what they say. Most people are going to captain Man United players this week. So Fernandes captain and then Salah captain is 19.82 points. Obviously, I'm just doubling the projections from FPL Review. And 38.22, which gives you 58.04. Now, if you were to bring in Salah, because a lot of people are saying, well, we just ignore Man United players completely, just sack them off, don't bring them in at all, don't even captain them, just captain Salah. And to be honest, I'm sure a lot of people will make that decision after they watch Mo Salah go mad against Leicester. But Salah captain plus Salah captain is 50.56. So the gap then is a lot bigger, right? It's nearly 8 points difference, which doesn't sound like much, but trust me, in a projection, that's a huge amount of points, right? Over just 2 game weeks. So for me, if you're not happy about captaining Ronaldo, or you do not own Ronaldo at all, then bringing in Fernandes first and captaining him and then getting Salah, at least by these projections, looks very, very good. And as always, I'd rather have a ticket to the lottery, a ticket to the double game week, than go for a single game week player. So I love Mo Salah. If you can have Salah and Fernandes, perfect. You got the best of both worlds. Hopefully the rest of your team is looking good. But I think based on this, it is worth going to Fernandes first, okay? If that's how you want to look at it. You don't have to use points projections. You might just think, screw it, on vibes, double game weeks are brilliant, I'm just bringing in Fernandes first. But if you're kind of a little bit unsure, that's a good way of kind of working it out. So do I want to own Mo Salah? Yes. Would I love to own Salah and Fernandes this week? Absolutely. But for my own team, I cannot bring myself to sell Ronaldo before a double game week, so I'm probably going to bring in Fernandes first. The points difference is not going to be massive necessarily. There's every chance that Fernandes blanks twice and Salah smashes it against Burnley. This is football. These things happen. But I think based on kind of projections and stuff like that, I'm probably going to go to Fernandes first. But let me know in the comments below what the hell I got wrong with those numbers. We are once again talking about Mikel Antonio and transfer tips, right? I think a lot of people just want to get rid of him. They're super frustrated. He got so many of his points in kind of the first 3 or 4 game weeks of this season. Just hasn't done a huge amount since, right? So I completely get the frustration. He's still owned by 40% of managers, but he has been taken out by 50% this week. And there's someone that kind of likes stats, likes to use data quite a bit. His expected goal involvement is still fairly high compared to last year. So expected goals plus expected assists. But his goal threat has dropped a bit. And his assist threat has come up a little bit. And it's just the way he's obviously playing with West Ham at the moment. I do wonder, and I've said this before, whether just the sheer amount of matches he's playing this year that he's not necessarily used to is maybe affecting fitness. West Ham don't have another striker they can really play instead. Like Yarmolenko or Bowen can play up front. But it's not the most ideal situation. So Antonio has played a lot, right? We see him as this injury-prone player. He has played so many kind of 80 to 90 minutes for West Ham this year. Is he just knackered? He could be. He probably needs a little bit of rest. Plus, you've got the Jamaica stuff as well. Should you be selling him this week? I think Leicester away is probably okay to give him one more game, right? Because I think ultimately, every single week, you've held on to Antonio too long. You've held on to him too long. You've got to sell him. You've got to sell him. You've got to sell him. That's what I see every single week. And then when I say, well, who should I bring in? Which of those players have smashed it recently as well? The reality is the forward line right now for FPL is just awful. Just they're all rubbish. They are just all rubbish, right? A few weeks ago, maybe like 6-7 weeks, it was all about bringing in Tony. Okay, he has scored, but he hasn't done a huge amount. I'm looking down the list of kind of strikers. Edouard, people were looking at getting him for a 4-point hit on the deadline stream. He didn't even start. Calvert-Lewin didn't start. Watkins, Villa scored 3 goals. He wasn't involved with them whatsoever. There's Jimenez as well. Morpay, Lacazette. These are just not that many kind of interesting names. So if I'm looking at this week, like, is there a really good striker that you have to bring in for Antonio? I'm not really sure there is. I think Leicester away, like Leicester defence has just not been good at all this season. It's probably worth keeping him. The only way that I'm maybe looking at getting rid of him before this fixture is if I need a bit of cash, that I might sell him to someone like Weghorst. And I do think because Weghorst might have double game weeks back-to-back in 26 guaranteed, and then maybe game week 27, he probably is a worthwhile option, right? 4 games versus 2. I'm all over the 4 games every time. Jimenez could be an option with a double, plays in 27 and plays in game week 30. He could be a good long-term option depending on how many chips you got left. Ultimately, Antonio's fixtures after the Newcastle game are not that great. Wolves aren't an easy team to break down. Liverpool definitely aren't. Spurs, I mean, the stats say that Spurs' defence has been pretty good this year, but Southampton absolutely took it to them last night, and they deserved the amount of goals they got, to be honest with you. So the Spurs' defence was not great last night. So make of that what you will. But that Game Week 30 fixture won't even be on if West Ham beat Southampton in the FA Cup. So ultimately, yes, we can definitely get rid of Antonio soon. There's lots of other strikers. St. Maximin's in the list as well. There's not really too many that stand out to me. So for me, the move will be to Weghorst because I think he's going to be guaranteed to play every single game pretty much. There's even an outside chance he's probably going to be on penalties as well. 2 back-to-back games where there could be double game, which is good. But I think for Leicester away, like unless you got something really urgent you need to do with your forwards or you've got no other moves to make, you probably just keep him one more week. He's been rubbish, but which forwards haven't? Alright, so Villa last night, pretty decent in attack. Coutinho in particular was very good, right? 1 goal, 2 assists as well. The assist, I think it was for the second goal. I mean, they were both good, but the assist for the second goal was so good. He's absolutely purring right now for Villa. And looks decent for next 2. Like, he's had 160,000 transfers in already. Newcastle away, Watford at home. If there's no double game weeks, right, that looks fantastic. His numbers so far this season are really good. That's only 3 games in the Premier League, though, so we shouldn't read too much into that. Villa will play in game week 27. They're also definitely playing in game week 30 as well. So one thing we kind of need to do at the moment, again, I don't want to sit on the fence, right, about, you know, team strategies and chip strategies are all different. But one thing to think about is how many free hits you're using in game week 27 and 30. If you're guaranteed to use a free hit in those 2 game weeks, then having a player that plays in those weeks makes no difference to you, right? Because you could bring them in anyway if you wanted to. On the flip side, if you're trying to not use your free hits for both game weeks, then you really need to pay attention to what players are playing those. Because although, for example, Coutinho doesn't have a double game week in game week 26, so he doesn't have 1 extra fixture there, he doesn't blank at all. So he has 6 fixtures over the next 6 game weeks, right? Whereas a player that has a double in 26, if they're not also playing in 27 and 30, or if they're missing one of those weeks, they also have 6 fixtures over the next 6 game weeks. It just so happens they've got 1 extra 1 week and then 1 less or no games whatsoever in another week. Now, as always, right, like the Fernandes and Salah situation I spoke about earlier, we do have transfers, right? So you can bring a player in for a double, and then if they blank, you can swap them for another player, and that's how you gain extra fixtures. But you can't take every single player out of your team. So that is one thing to consider if you're looking to bring in Coutinho. If, like me, you're an idiot that just loves double game weeks, and I know people are frustrated because it happens every year. There's certain players you hold because they have 2 fixtures and it doesn't work out. But we kind of forget all the times it does work out. So if I'm looking at bringing in a player this week, am I going to bring in Coutinho with 2 games? 2 good games, right? Newcastle and Watford. Don't get me wrong, they are decent games. And I know that Newcastle have made lots of kind of transfers, especially from defensive point of view. And Watford obviously got Hodgson, and he kind of specialises in trying to make their team been really hard to beat. I think they've only conceded, one goal in his first 2 games in the Premier League. So that is looking good. But I just think if we're not targeting teams like this still, like, who are we targeting, right? I mean, Leicester, of course, Leeds still, Norwich, etc., maybe Burnley. But I don't think we should suddenly put Newcastle and Watford in this position where they're like really hard to beat all of a sudden. Because people did that last year with teams like Fulham. They're like, okay, they've done really well over like 4 weeks, and then they kept conceding goals. So I do think the next 2 fixtures are good. But if I'm looking at players maybe in and around the 7.1, I mean, a lot of us have still got Bowen, for example. We're not going to sell him. If I was buying someone like Rafinha, I probably would still buy Rafinha over Coutinho. I know Leeds' double is not fantastic, but it's okay-ish, and it is 3 games over the next 2 weeks. So people will see this as a trap, right? If Coutinho outscores Rafinha, all double game week players will get called a trap, and it can happen. But I think you've got to go with, what you think is right, and you've got to go with what the chances are of more points, right? That's what we're here for. So I think Coutinho is fine. I don't think we should have to only bring in double game week players, right? It's all about quality. But if you've not got Rafinha, is he a better option than Coutinho over the next 2 weeks? I think he probably is. And the fixtures afterwards for Villa are not as good as the ones they're having right now either. But if you're in a situation where you're trying to hold 3 hits, Coutinho could be a good option, although Rafinha also plays in 27 and 30. There's Zaha as well. I know one of the fixtures is Chelsea in game week 26, but the other one is Watford. And he's done all right. Whether or not he's still on penalties, we'll have to wait and see, because his penalty last night was absolutely awful. But he could be a good option. Outside of that, I don't think there's too many other players that I would necessarily put ahead of Coutinho for a similar price. Martinelli, for example, could be a good option. He doesn't play in 25, but for 26, he's decent. But again, that's all going to come down to chip strategy. If you can have Coutinho this week and then Martinelli in 26 and then somehow figure out the rest of the week, the rest of the game weeks, then fair enough. So ultimately, I think Coutinho looked great last night. Probably got a bit of a new lease of life under Gerrard. He's probably going to play most games, start most games, get decent minutes. I think he does look good. But if I've not got a player like Rafinha, and this is the dilemma I'm going to have myself, right? Because I need to make a transfer for a midfielder soon. I'm probably still going to side with the guy with two games in a week. It's just the way I am. All right, we'll talk about Edouard quickly. He's got a few owners, right? And obviously a lot of people were frustrated that he didn't start against Norwich last night. And then he did come on and he blocked a few benches. I know a few people had Ramsey first bench, for example. He's already been bought in by 22,000 managers. This is why I wasn't really completely happy about doing Antonio to Edouard for a -4 on the deadline stream, because he is a bit of a minutes risk, and Palace do have attackers like Zaha back. The main problem for Edouard now is, and Mateta has started, so forget last night. Before that, he started 2 of the previous 4 game weeks. And Edouard can play off the left as well. But Zaha's back now, so he's going to start most games off the left, right? Because he's pretty nailed. Elise is also playing really well off the right. So it only leaves 1 spot for a striker. Mateta's now played a few games. Edouard can play there. Even Benteke could play there. He's not starting as much now as he was earlier on in the season, but he is still a threat. So they've got quite a few players for just that 1 spot. If you assume that Zaha and Elise are probably not going to get rotated that much. So Edouard is a bit of a problem, I would say. The good news for owners is, like I just spoke about for Antonio, not many forwards did anything this week anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But in game week 26, how many games is he going to play? He could just play one of them, right? In the next 2 game weeks, he might just play 2 games. So would I use a transfer to get rid of him? I don't think I would, but I would do that knowing the risk that he's not necessarily guaranteed to get minutes. And even when he does play, he doesn't necessarily play to 90 minutes anyway, right? His numbers are really good. I think it was FPL Tribbiani on Twitter, made a really good reply to someone, and basically said Edouard is a bit like Foden. His numbers are really good, but he doesn't necessarily get the minutes. So Foden, if he played 90 minutes week in, week out, he would be in my team for the whole season, but that doesn't happen. So you kind of got to try and pick and choose when it's going to happen. With Edouard, his numbers are really good. Expected goals 0.43, expected assists 0.13. That is really good. If he played 90 minutes every single week and could keep that up, he'd be extreme value and be in most of our teams, right? 6.5 million. But he doesn't always play, and he doesn't always get to 90 minutes. So those numbers are not quite as good as they look. And you could, like I said, you could say the same for Foden for sure. So ultimately, would I sell him this week? No. I think there's now probably a better chance that he starts the next game against Brentford. But I think you go into the double game week knowing he's a minutes risk. But if you've got other moves to make, I don't think he's that bad to just hold on to. Let me know below in the comments who you are thinking of bringing in or taking out this week. Especially let me know about the Fernandes and Salah situation, right? Because a lot of people are thinking about that this week. That was the best way I could come up with doing it, is doing a little bit of maths. Obviously, I could talk about my own thoughts. I always want a double game week player, but I think when you apply some numbers, it kind of makes it look a little bit better, especially if you're not confident about Ronaldo's minutes. So I'm going to talk about in team selection, but I think that's probably what I'm going to do. Move to Fernandes first and then move to Salah. The only problem for me is it involves selling Foden, which is not ideal. But anyway, let me know what you're doing in the comments below. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. And I'll have my team selection video out tomorrow once all the games are finished. I'll see you then.